Okay, so back in 2007, or let me ask you this, when the decision was made to incorporate the Mercy Housing Project in the Etowah Terrace area, at that point, why was there no urgency to change the master plan then and make that public knowledge of what your intents were to do to develop that area that's developed against what the original master plan said? Even though I understand you have the right, and even though you have the ability to move it as a progress in motion, but with the development of that master plan, that was sort of what was written in stone, and you and your board chose at that time to disregard what was written in stone and then do what you felt was best, and now where did we start this, back in April of '09, or some 4 months passed, and now all of a sudden we have an urgency to change the master plan to fit what has already been done over there.
Well, with all due respect, nothing in the 2004 plan is written in stone. Nothing is ever written in stone in a master plan. It has to be flexible. It has to be able to meet the needs. It has to be able to meet the current market conditions. The same thing has happened with the downtown business district over the last 20 years. Redevelopment is not a project. It is a process, and we are going through a process. It took us almost a year to assemble the parcels at Etowah Terrace, and you will remember, because we came before you many, many times, bits and pieces, trying to get all of those parcels assembled. Within 2 weeks of the assembly of those parcels, we went out for a public information meeting. Within 2 weeks of assembling the parcels, and before we even had a chance to present our proposal to the community, an officer of the Mount Aventine Association stood up and said, "This will not be in our front yard." And when you hear comments like importing poverty, what does that say to you? NIMBYism is a very nice word for racism.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, everybody's been very respectful to people's times and positions, and I'm going to ask you to continue that.
I'm not quite through. Ms. Moore, I'm not sure if you was directing that racism comment directly at me.
I'm going to ask everybody in the audience, if you're not at the podium, to please hold your remarks, please. Thank you very much.
I'm asking you if you was directing your comment about being racist to me.
Oh, no, sir. No. In fact, let me put this in context. This is from the Interfaith Housing Center, which is a national housing center that deals with the issues surrounding the creation of affordable housing. And they have a list of things called common myths. And myth number 2, the title is, "Affordable housing residents won't fit into our community," or "Affordable housing will lead to an increase in crime in my community." And the response is, this objection is often a code term for racist attitudes against blacks and Latinos, since the media paints people of color, particularly those in public housing, as the face of affordable housing. In most cases, however, people who need affordable housing are already members of the community, no matter what their race. They are senior citizens living on fixed incomes and families working entry-level and low-wage jobs. They are preschool teachers, travel agents, food service workers, clergy, and medical assistants. There is no evidence that affordable housing brings crime to a neighborhood. Whether a development will be an asset or a detriment to a community more often turns onto the basic management practices, careful screening, prudent security members, and regular upkeep. Anyone can build one of these projects. It's the management of it that's key to the success.
Ms. Moore, I've never argued with the project. My argument has always been with the procedure. And I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about who's racist and who's not racist, because that has never been an issue with me, or as far as I know, anyone in here. My issue has been with procedure the whole time. And now I see more procedure efforts being done to correct the efforts that I brought up way back in April that was not being followed to, or not being adhered to properly, has been being changed, and most of those changes are coincidental with the lawsuit. Now, again, I'm going back to what my question was, is why was there not an urgency or a interest to make the adoption or the changes or alterations to the master plan back when it was observed and the information that you have spoke about was knowledgeable, to make those changes and start having public hearings back then and start doing the correct process and a mutual process that would, even though you may have had negative input or positive input, or it may not have been in the way you wanted to hear it, but that the process was done so that everybody had an opportunity to weigh in, and it was done within time so that it was not rushed and not thrown on people. I mean, from the day this process has started, it has been nothing but just a multitude of errors that we are having to go back and correct, either through the attorneys directing us in the proper manner to do it, or having to make changes to procedure, text amendments, rezoning redos that have never been done, that has basically covered the tracks of the errors that's been made up to this point. And I just see this modification as another step to protect what you've already done down there that should have been done back in 2007 or 2008, whenever it was, when you identified that the changes need to be made in that master plan.
Well,
let me interrupt one thing just a minute. I appreciate what you got to say in your questions, but I do want to remind you that the proposal came from our